During this module, we will discuss stereotypes of African American women, their origins, and how they have evolved over time. The stereotypes of African American women come from slavery to justify their inhumane treatment. The promotion of the plantation system provided an explanation for relationships between enslaved blacks and whites to fit this plantation mythology. Slaves were supposed to be defined as happy servants of white slave owners. These stereotypes highlight African American women's sexuality, moral character, and the roles of whites in their lives. The first stereotype that we should discuss is the mammy image. It is of a mothering African American woman, usually heavy-set, asexual, and independent. They're extraordinarily loving towards white family members, and they lavish affection on them. This image is an indication, or supposed to be an indication, of her happiness to be in service of whites. What's masked in this stereotypical image is the inhumane treatment of African American women. We also do not see African American women's families, so they're just there for the support of whites. So black children are marked as invisible. Also, her sexuality is marked as invisible. The way that she looks, the way that she presents herself is in no way defined as being sexual. This erasure also marks the hardship of a black woman attempting to raise a child in the system of slavery. The next image is the Jezebel image. It is commonly featured when discussing young African American women who are hypersexual, promiscuous, and have low moral character. The image casts enslaved African women in this role to define them as temptresses. This is because African American women were supposed to seduce white slave owners, which would explain relationships with African American women and white men. So if we have this image, it's very difficult for us to think of African American women as victims of sexual violence and sexual assault. There's this idea of women desiring or asking to be the objects of sexual advances by whites. In the picture, we see a figurine of an African American woman that's commonly associated with the Jezebel image, and we also see that updated image if we think about Nicki Minaj. How is she dressed? What are the types of things that come to our mind when we see her picture? The next stereotype is of the tragic mulatto. It is a stereotype of a light-skinned African American woman. It comes from the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin, written by Harriet Beecher Stowe. It's a woman who is unable to live in either a African American society or a white society due to her parentage. She usually dies or has a particularly tragic or heartbreaking life. This is one of the only stereotypes that actually is designed to play on the sympathies of the public. So we see the image of the stereotypical image in Uncle Tom's Cabin. If we want to think about an updated image, we can look at Halle Berry, particularly her role in Monsters Ball. If you have ever seen the movie, she actually wins an Academy Award for her performance. What does it mean to be a woman from a multicultural background? And also, if we think about beauty, she's defined as being beautiful, but always in a precarious position in the films that she's in. The final stereotype is the sapphire stereotype. It's defined as a loud, aggressive, uncompromising, and emasculating image of African American women. This stereotype comes from the 1920s, 1930s radio program that was put on by two white comedians titled Amos and Andy. In the radio program, Sapphire is the wife of the main character. She's known as being shifty and always conniving. She always has a plan, and at the end of each episode, she usually is found out for her manipulations, and she has to leave with her tail between her legs. Basically, this stereotype is designed to think about women as always complaining, always trying to assert themselves or emasculate African American men. The main reason why African American women don't have good relationships with African American men is because they're always complaining and always scheming and being aggressive. Also, the stereotype is designed not to promote thinking about African American women as voicing their concerns, but rather as being nags. Now, in the picture, I have a picture of Sapphire from the actual television program. This is the first actress to play that part. And I also have a picture of Serena Williams. She's known as being extraordinarily passionate about playing tennis. She's also known as being aggressive and complaining, particularly if we think about an African-American woman playing a sport that's very upper class and very white. How are her complaints being met? How are her frustrations being defined if we talk about the news media? It is important to know that these stereotypes have evolved over time, and they're very fluid. So in thinking about the Serena Williams stereotype, we may define her in some instances, and thinking about her aggressive, what's defined as aggressive play, her being passionate on the court. And we can also think about the way that she dresses if we think about her outfits. What are some of the things that people say if we see this African-American woman out playing tennis? What are the types of clothes that she's wearing? What are the types of things that we think about or that are conjured up if we talk about African-American women as objects? And then thinking about her sex and sexuality. So all of these things come into play when we talk about African-American women. If we talk about standards of beauty, African-American women are not being characterized by their level of character, or basically defined as having low character. So if there's a linkage between beauty and feminine virtue, because of slavery, Black women are not afforded or not thought about in these terms. So if we think about African American women and what it means, how are these images being packaged and repackaged? Where you're defined as being sexy and exotic, but not necessarily being beautiful and virtuous. In conclusion, we need to think about African American women not being characterized as exemplars or the epitome of femininity because of skin color, hair texture, body type. We can also think about these stereotypes as being used to limit the ways that we discuss the complexity of the lived experiences of African American women. There's also pressure for these women to conform to traditional standards of beauty.